Part 38. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 371. Chapter 371. Suyun is popular. She does have this intention, but she has not yet found a suitable way to get in touch with He Jin. After all, it is not easy to get in touch with the He family in the imperial capital. Of course there are ways, but it still takes some trouble. After a pause, she looked at Yoon Chugseok and said, "How are you doing with the company's new project?" "It's all that bastard's fault, it has nothing to do with me," Yoon Chugseok said with a slight snort. "How can it not matter? Since he is responsible, it has more to do with you. No matter whether he does well or not, it has a great relationship with you." Yao Ying took a hand from her hand, he took the sapphire and said, "Remember, what belongs to you is yours. No matter how many times it goes around, it will eventually come back to you." Looking at the box in her hand, Yoon Chugseok's eyes became dark. Undoubtedly, Huanya's press conference was very successful. At least topics such as perfume and toxicity almost no longer exist in the market, or occasionally a few are mentioned, which are also topics to refute rumors. And correspondingly, it has played a positive role, that is, many people are very interested in the soothing and sleeping aromatherapy mentioned by Suyun. Many insomnia groups have launched appeals, hoping to mass produce it. Of course there are also some more sensible people who want to test its safety and feasibility. But there is no doubt that Suyun is popular. Her name appears on hot searches again and again, and many people are looking for the perfume made by Suyun. If it is said to be made by Suyun herself, the price will be incredibly expensive. Huanya is now busy with another thing, which is to fight against counterfeiting. She has applied for a trademark patent. The company is already planning to launch a brand specifically for her, and other people in the company have also changed their impression of her. At first, I thought, why did the president choose such an unknown woman with a lot of troubles? After the press conference, the CEO is indeed very discerning. The future wife of the CEO is not only beautiful, but also talented, courageous, and capable. And someone at the forefront of the storm was stuck in the laboratory, thinking about it so much that it gave him a headache. Please let me go, I've been reading all morning." She came to the laboratory just to return to silence and continue her thoughts where she left off. However, he didn't expect that not long after he arrived, he would be entangled by Arian. Later, Zhao Xian also came. They attacked 1 and 2, and there was no way to escape. The two have the same goal, which is to let her take the exam for a professional qualification certificate. "If you want us not to miss you, just take the exam. It's not that difficult for you, why do you have to compete with them and let them use this as an excuse?" Zhao Xian was so sincere that he read it all morning. She didn't even drink water, she was still very powerful. Yes. As soon as she finished speaking, Arian immediately agreed, "Sister Zhao is absolutely right. It's just a professional qualification certificate. Just give it to them. It's not like you can't pass the exam." Covering her ears with both hands, Suyun rolled her eyes helplessly. "I really can't pass the exam." "Nonsense," Zhao Xian immediately refuted, "you are so powerful and have been in this industry for so long, but you can't pass the basic professional qualification certificate. Who are you lying to? You are a person who has won international awards. Don't ask for it. It's an excuse. Go ahead, just take one test and that's it. It won't be difficult for you and the company won't be embarrassed either." "I'm not talking nonsense, I really can't pass the exam. It's not like I haven't passed the exam." She slapped the table and shouted. "What?" Zhao Xian and Wu Arian stared at each other, then looked at her and said in unison, "That's impossible." "It's true," Suyun sighed and said helplessly, "I passed the exam when I first started. I passed the exam for the title of perfumer, but I really didn't pass the exam for the professional qualification certificate." The professional qualification certificate was originally developed by the Fragrance Industry Association, and the world doesn't need it. Zhao Xian thought thoughtfully, it is indeed not necessary internationally, and there is no such statement. It seems that it has been developed domestically in recent years. But you won't fail the exam, right? She continued to complain, the most junior technicians in the company have this thing, but you don't have it. Ouch, thinking back to the time when I made things difficult for her, if she had to produce this thing, would it just block her out of the door? Fortunately, I didn't think so at the time. Of course, no one expected that she didn't even have such a basic thing. That's right, I have them all, Arian said hurriedly. Suyun looked at her with resentment, I must be stupid. That's not what I meant, but... Thinking about it carefully, when I took the professional qualification certificate examination, it was all theoretical stuff, and the knowledge involved had little to do with perfumery. Except for some basic theories, most of them were about the classification and application of spices. It's about political theory. Is it because of you that she failed the exam? Actually, those questions can be answered, just memorize them and take a look at them, and then you will know how to do it. You are so smart, you can definitely pass the exam, Arian said. Faced with their persistence, Suyun sighed and said, well, it's not that I really can't pass the exam, I really don't want to take the exam. If it's related to perfumery, I would be willing to overcome and learn no matter how hard it is, but the things they take exams have nothing to do with perfumery. This thing is not recognized internationally, and I don't plan to join. Fragrance Industry Association, why waste time taking a test that I don't need at all? The question now is not whether she can pass the exam or not, but that she simply doesn't want to waste time on such meaningless things. The words have come to this point, and the two of them have been persuading her all morning. It seems that they can no longer persuade her. The most important thing is that they seem to be convinced by her, and secretly felt that this certificate was really unnecessary. The three of them lay down on the table, all looking exhausted. Arian said, then, really we won't take the exam. Zhao Xian sighed, but, now the Fragrance Industry Association is going to investigate you, and may even sue you. It's clear that they are looking for trouble for you. Follow them. Suyun looked unconcerned. Frankly speaking, I have never understood the significance of the existence of this association. The Fragrance Industry Association has been established, except for a few who have retired, and it has not released new products in many years. A top perfumer, what other famous people and works are there? As a perfumer, isn't the most important thing to do. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 372. Chapter 372, it's at your fingertips. That being said, the rules of this industry have always been like this, Arian said with a sigh. Rules are meant to be broken. Suyun sat up and knocked on the table with her hand. Originally, they and I are on a par with each other, but if this is true, I am willing to stay with them until the end. But the company? After hesitating for a moment, Zhao Xian shook his head, but it's okay, the president will definitely be on your side. Suyun shook her head, no, this is my personal behavior. If it involves the company, I will leave my job. If she was not confident in herself before, then after more than a year of training, she fully believes that she can create her own brand, and she has this ability in perfumery. No matter what, I support you, Zhao Xian said, patting her on the shoulder. Wu Arian also put his arm on her other shoulder, well, I support you too. Thank you, it is really worth being happy to have the help and support of friends. This is a true friend. In the hospital, Yun Boqian was rarely in good spirits. Today he did not refuse again. He met Yun Zhongcheng, but his face was not very good looking. Brother, are you feeling better? Yun Zhongcheng asked with concern. Fortunately, I won't die for the time being. After coughing a few times, Yoon Bokin motioned to his wife to move the pillow upwards, half sitting and leaning on it. The whole person looked weak and lacked energy. Probing his expression carefully, Yoon Jongcheng felt that his brother really looked like he didn't have much time left. I didn't expect that a person who looked quite healthy before would collapse. Brother, don't say such things. You are in good health. You are just sick. You will be discharged soon after taking good care of yourself. There are still many things in the company waiting for you to make decisions. He sat down on the stool next to the bed. He came down with an eager look on his face. Glancing at him lazily, Yoon Bokin sighed, I know my own body well. How are things in the company lately? Everything is fine, everything is normal. Why, didn't Lao Xiao and Lao Cao report to you? He was talking about the two veterans of the company and shareholders. They are now also responsible for the company's main business. The report is a report, but with my body, I wake up and fall asleep, so what I hear is not very clear. After a pause, he said, I remember that the company has established a new project department, and the project is for your son. Responsible. Yoon Jongchen was startled, and immediately returned with a smile, yes, Xiao Qian is in charge now, and I have asked people to help guide him. After all, he is still young. But the project is going well so far, and the new perfume is coming soon. It's about to be released, and I hope the sales will be good. He said cheerfully, unable to conceal his joy. That's good. I'm getting older and my health is not good anymore. In the future, the company will still have to rely on the younger generation, he said, coughing hard a few more times, as if to verify that his health was really bad. Good. Brother. He quickly stood up and patted him on the back. On the side, Yoon Bokin's wife poured water and handed it to him. He took the water and took 2 sips. Why, is there no news about Chuao? You are in poor health now, so you should let him come back and take care of you, Yoon Jongcheng asked tentatively. In fact, Yoon Jongcheng was not 100% sure whether Yoon Chuao was really missing. Alas, Yoon Bokin sighed deeply and turned his head to look out the window. You can't keep the child when he gets older. He has his own ideas, so let him go. But no matter what, if your father is sick, you should still perform your filial piety at the bedside. Before he finished speaking, Yoon Bokin interrupted him, that's it? If he doesn't come back, he won't come back. Just pretend that he never gave birth to this son. I'm a little tired, so you can go back first. This was a tactful eviction order. Yoon Jongchen wanted to say something else, but seeing that he had closed his eyes and looked tired, he stood up and left. Well, brother and sister-in-law, I'll leave first. I'll see you another day. I'll see you again. Don't worry, I will take care of the company. After he finished speaking, he paused and saw that Yoon Bokin still had his eyes closed and seemed to have fallen asleep. The sister-in-law wiped her tears and said, I'll give it to you. Send him out. The woman stood at the entrance of the elevator. I won't go down. Your elder brother still needs to be taken care of. I don't know anything about the company, so just worry about it. Yoon Jongcheng stopped her. Sister-in-law, my eldest brother's body, what did the doctor say? The doctor said that he worked too hard and was exhausted. He needs to take good care of himself. The problem shouldn't be serious, he sighed, but his mood seemed to be very low. It was an understatement, but he was obviously suppressing his crying. That's good. Then, where has Chu Yao gone? Do you want me to call him to persuade him? After all, I am his second uncle, so maybe he will listen. No, no need. The woman looked obviously flustered, shook her head and said, he just had something to do outside and was delayed. He should be back soon. No, don't rush him. Second brother, you go back first. Your elder brother is here to take care of me, so you can rest assured. After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the ward while wiping his tears. Looking at her back, Yun Zhongcheng fell into deep thought. From the looks of it, it was not that Yun Chuao refused to come back, but he was afraid that he really could not be contacted. He sent some people to inquire about him, but could not find any news about him. Could it be that there was really an accident? If this is the case, then it is really an opportunity given by God. Yun Zhongcheng was in a good mood after leaving the hospital. He felt that everything was developing in a direction that was beneficial to him. This Yun family was at his fingertips. As soon as he returned to the company, Yun Chukian was already waiting in his office. "Dad." He nodded and looked at the document in his hand. "Has the perfume been successful and can be launched on the market?" "Yes, I have already prepared the plan and will give it to you to review. From packaging to publicity, as well as endorsements and advertisements, I have already arranged them. The advertisements will be shot in the next 2 days. I have also bought gold from all major TV stations. At this time, everything is ready, and we guarantee that our perfume will be sold out as soon as it is launched," he said confidently. "Okay," Yun Zhongcheng was very happy. He opened the folder and looked at the full set of plans inside. He was very satisfied. "It's beautifully done, Xiaoqian. Remember to keep up with the subsequent increase in production volume. The factory will lay it out well. Be prepared to greet us and make way for our perfume." "Yes, Dad, I have already said hello, don't worry," he reported the situation with a smile, then paused, looking embarrassed. "It's just." "Just what?" "Just in terms of budget, it will be a bit," he rubbed his fingers, indicating that money was a bit tight. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 373. Chapter 373. Forgive her this time. Budget. Yun Zhongcheng frowned and said, "Isn't there a lot of money prepared for you?" "That's right, but hiring a perfumer costs a lot, as you know. Top perfumers are very expensive nowadays, so the funds for other aspects are a little tight." Turning to the page of financial expenditures, Yun Zhongcheng's brows could almost twist into knots. He stared at the numbers above with a sullen look on his face. "I didn't tell you before. The budget is so large, so don't exceed it. Why are you still exceeding so much? What kind of top perfumer did you hire? The price is so ridiculous. You must have been deceived." He poked the words on the paper with his finger, and he was very unhappy. "No, no," waving his hands repeatedly, Yun Chukian hurriedly explained, "I asked someone to find me. I finally found a top international perfumer. We have already publicized it. He is very well known. Just search online and you'll find out." As he spoke, he trotted to his side, bent down and entered a string of English letters into the computer browser. "Look, this is William. He has won many international awards. He is authoritative. This can be found. And I've tried it, and the perfume they made is really good, Dad. Believe me, we will definitely succeed. It's definitely worth the money." Looking at the introduction on the computer, Yun Zhongcheng held his chin in his hand and pondered. He actually didn't know much about this aspect. After thinking about it, he raised his head and asked, "What did your sister say?" "My sister fully supports me. She thinks I have great ideas and can do well," he responded immediately. He tilted his head and thought for a while, but couldn't think of anything wrong. After thinking about it, that so much money had already been spent, and he should continue to move forward no matter what, he nodded and said, "Okay, since that's the case, just do it. If the money is not enough in the future, I will ask the finance department to find a way to allocate more to you. But one thing you have to remember. No matter how much money you spend, the money must be spent wisely. As long as it is worth the money, spend it. Don't imitate your mother, thinking about the 50 million, I still feel that feeling sad and angry. 50 million. Part of that 50 million was his personal assets. If he hadn't thought quickly and said that he would give the necklace to Yao Ying, he would have gained a good reputation and saved the company's face and stability. Otherwise, this would have been 50 million is too much money to spend. Yoon Chukian frowned. He also knew about the matter of his mother going to the auction. He originally planned to mention it after talking about official business, but he didn't expect his father to take the initiative to mention it, so he couldn't talk much about it. Dad, Mom just wants you to give her a gift. You also know that she has been wrong these years. It has not been easy for her these years. Doesn't she have enough to eat or wear warmly after following me? Or how much has she suffered? Chen Guo said these words so much that he started to have a rebound reaction. Yes, your mother has no name or status with me. She has been a little wronged over the years, so I am trying my best to compensate you, mother and son. Tell it yourself, when you were growing up, your mother didn't have to go out to work or worry about money. You went to kindergarten, junior high school and college. In which way did I not spend less, and in which way did I not contribute? Now, am I not doing the same step by step? After I arranged for you to come in, everything will be handed over to you in the future. What else is she dissatisfied with? He yelled a lot, but Yoon Chukian didn't dare to say anything and listened honestly. At the auction that day, we agreed on 30 million to 30 million, but she directly called me for 50 million. Is the money so easy to make? She blamed me for giving the necklace to your aunt, but in front of so many reporters, I can't say that your aunt and I are getting divorced, right? What should Yoon do? Will the old men in the company take this matter to task? Has your mother even considered it? Yoon Chu was silent for a while and said in a low voice, Mom, she doesn't have much knowledge. She is a woman after all. Dad, don't be angry. Since this matter has been settled properly, let's get over it. Don't worry, I'll just go and coax her out a little bit. She's just throwing a tantrum. Don't be serious with her. As a woman, it'll be fine if you let her lose her temper. Mom has been with you for so many years. You don't know her character. She was impulsive during the auction, and it was because she had been suppressed for too long. Please, forgive her this time. Seeing that his son was on his side and everything he said reached his heart, Yoon Zhongcheng felt a little more comfortable. Okay, I'm just complaining to you. You're right, your mother has that temper. I'll buy her a diamond necklace later, and this matter will be over. Well, Dad, I'm going out to do some work. Yoon Zhongchen nodded, go. After he backed out, he let out a long sigh of relief. After thinking about it, he felt that his mother was too abrupt this time. If he didn't do this well, he would make his father angry. For a necklace, he would not lose his father. The preference. Yes, now let's go and see how the advertising is going. He specially found the internationally renowned model Ruth to be the spokesperson. This whole set, from the perfumer to the model, to the entire packaging model, he is running for. He is going to enter the international market. In fact, he is very ambitious about this project. He doesn't think highly of the domestic market. Since he wants to do something big, he has to go for something big and become famous instantly. When the time comes, no one in the company will look at him differently. Soo-yoon had been busy in the laboratory all day and felt a sore neck when she walked out the door. In the past few days, she has been studying the piece of spicewood that Yoon Chweao gave her before. She specially refined a bit for observation and found that this piece of spice has some interesting characteristics. The general fragrance base will change differently as it evaporates. But this spice does not. To be precise, the changes are too subtle. For non-professionals, you cannot detect anything without careful attention. In other words, the stability of spices is very strong. This is a very interesting discovery. If it is mixed into perfume or refined into essential oils, I don't know what the effect will be. Of course, this is only a preliminary idea, and there is no guarantee of the final result when implemented. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Yoon Chwaeo for a while, and there is no news about this boy. Soo-yoon, you figured it out. I almost went in to find you. A colleague outside saw her and said. What's wrong? Soo-yoon asked, wiping the hand cream she made on her hands. Someone is looking for you, he said as he led her to the reception room. I have been here all afternoon. I told you to call you, but she didn't let you. She just said like that. She is off work now. I think if I want to call you, you will come out. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 374. Chapter 374, Bringing You Business. Oh, Soo-yoon was about to ask who it was when she saw the person sitting in the reception room, Lisa. She was very surprised. She didn't expect that it was her who came to find her, but she was also very surprised. Why are you here? Look at what you said, can't I come? Lisa was particularly enthusiastic and opened her arms to hug her. Long time no see, I really miss you. Well, I miss you too. Soo-yoon patted her back and said, what, are there any catwalk events again? Does there have to be a catwalk event for me to come? After a pause, she originally wanted to be more mysterious, but with her cheerful personality, she couldn't hold it in at all and took the initiative to say, I'm here this time for you. Bringing business. Business. Looking outside at her colleagues who had already left work, she patted Lisa's hand gently and said, wait a minute, I'm going to change clothes and get something, and we'll go out and talk. You must be hungry, I'll treat you to something to eat. Lisa nodded. Soo-yoon quickly changed her clothes, called Yao and told him that a friend was coming, and then took Lisa to eat. Japanese food, Thai food, or French food? Soo-yoon asked as she drove the car out of the parking lot. Planing her mouth, Lisa said, I have eaten French food in France for so many years, why do I come all the way here to eat French food? I want to eat hot pot. When I mentioned the word hot pot, my eyes lit up. Soo-yoon couldn't help laughing. Okay, then hot pot. I found a famous hot pot restaurant nearby. In order to take care of her, I ordered the Mandarin duck pot and let Lisa choose the dishes. She poked and ordered a bunch of fat beef, mutton, curly tripe, and the like an expert, with meat accounting for the majority. After clicking, he looked up and saw Soo-yoon looking at her and smiling, tilting her head. Why, you can't bear to leave, you are afraid that I will be poor. You shouldn't be, your current fiancé. Isn't he very rich? She also heard about Soo-yoon and Yao, and teased her about it. Soo-yoon smiled and said, I'm not afraid that you will make me poor, I'm afraid that you will ruin your figure. Why, don't you want to keep in shape? Hi, she said, waving her chopsticks, eating is such a fun thing, don't talk about such a disappointing topic. Took a sip of the drink and then said, you can reduce the weight after eating. I finally came here, so I can't live up to my stomach. Soo-yoon was of course joking with her, and soon the dishes came out, steaming hot and fragrant. Lisa was very skillful in putting the dishes in and boiling them. Although she was not very good at spicy food, she still couldn't help but take a few bites. It was so spicy that she gasped, but she couldn't help it, which made Soo-yoon laugh for a long time. You said before that you brought business, what do you mean? Soo-yoon only raised this question halfway through the meal. Lisa nodded repeatedly, that's right, I almost forgot. I'm here to do business with you. Can you make a series of perfumes, probably, about 4 types? What does it mean? What is the theme? Who is it for? Are there any requirements on the type? How long will it take and how much will it take? Soon, Soo-yoon asked a lot of questions. Lisa, who was eating shrimp slippery, was stunned for a moment. She blinked. You didn't understand anything, so you came to discuss business with me, right?" Soo-yoon laughed at her. "Besides, there are so many perfumers over there, many of them top-notch ones, and your father himself is. Why do you come all the way to find me? Are you just greedy for this hot pot meal?" Soo-yoon was teasing her half jokingly, but half of what Soo-yoon said was the truth. Regardless of the level of development of their industry, her own father is also a leader in the industry. He has a research team and apprentices. Why do so many experts come to her? Why do they come to her specifically? Does she have a chance? Of course not. Pretending to be angry, Lisa continued, "Actually, it's like this. Recently, my father and others have projects on their hands and are temporarily too busy. Last time you gave me a specially blended perfume, the sisters in our company were all very happy. I like it, so I hope you can take over this business. As for the topic and requirements, I have them all written down on my phone. I'm afraid I'll forget them, so I'll send them to you for review." He went to take out his phone and continued, "I made a guarantee with the company. You have to know that our costume jewelry is all designated by the company. In fact, the perfume is also originally, but I convinced them that it must be unique. After all, this catwalk is an annual show. If it is just ordinary brand name perfume, how can it be stand out?" Soo-yoon put her hand on her forehead and smiled helplessly. "Do you call those big luxury brands ordinary brand name perfumes?" I specially added an accent to the word normal. Lisa is really impressed. I admire her very much. "Isn't it ordinary?" She blinked and thought about it. "No matter how expensive it is, most people can buy and own it, so isn't it ordinary? To tell you the truth, I think the perfume made by my father, quite ordinary." "Soo-yoon, I really thank you. Really, it's such a compliment to her. I sent it to you, please think about it." After sending the message, Lisa thought for a while and said, "No, you have to agree." After thinking about it, "I took a shot of my chest before I came here to guarantee it." I opened my phone and took a look. The requirements are actually quite simple. The 4 models must have different characteristics, but if they have the same theme, to put it bluntly, I want to make a series. I want to express the different personalities and charms of women, and I have plenty of time. The price is easy to say, you will definitely be satisfied. But this, you should actually talk to my company," Soo-yoon said. "After all, my company is currently approaching me for my projects. I don't care, I'm going to do it with you. I won't talk to anyone else, I'll just talk to you." Lisa buried her head and continued eating while saying vaguely, "I only believe in you." This sentence still touched Soo-yoon deeply. She sighed, "Okay, I'll think about it." Lisa temporarily checked into the hotel, and after seeing her off, Soo-yoon drove home by herself. Frankly speaking, the price offered there is indeed quite attractive, but she has really not done a serious theme series in such a long time, so she is quite interested. Lisa's arrival made her want to run her own studio more and more. Firstly, her own affairs would not be implicated in the company, and secondly, it would be more convenient to discuss business or want to do something. When this thought comes to mind, it is as if there is a gap in the dam, the idea is surging, and it is as if it is necessary to implement it immediately. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 375. Chapter 375. Is it roundworms in her stomach? As she was about to get home, she received a call from Yao. "Are you back?" "Almost there," she said. "There's still 5 minutes left." "Then wait for me at the door and don't come in," he said. "I'll be out right away." Soo-yoon was stunned for a moment. "Do you want to go out?" Is something wrong?" Let's talk about it later when we meet. After thinking for a moment, she nodded and said, okay, I'll be there soon. Soon the car drove into the community. As soon as he arrived at the door of the villa, he saw Siyajin walking out of it. He didn't look too formal. He probably wasn't going to attend an important occasion, but he didn't say where he was going. Soo-yoon didn't know why as she watched him open her driver's door. I'll drive, you've been busy all day, take a rest. Oh, Soo-yoon responded, unbuckled her seat belt, got out of the car and moved to the passenger seat. Why didn't you let Soo-fen drive? It's our business, let him do whatever he wants. He smiled, started the car, turned around to make sure she had fastened her seat belt. Let's go. He didn't say anything, and Soo-yoon didn't know where he was taking her, so she acted mysteriously. We are so late, where are we going? Have you eaten? Lisa and I just had dinner. I was afraid that he was taking me out to eat, so I made a statement in advance, and then added after thinking about it. But if you want to eat something, I can accompany you, or you can have some dessert. Want to have dessert? Yao asked casually when he heard her say this. It's okay, you can eat some. How about Suchinji? Also good. The car drove directly in the direction of Suchinji. Fortunately, there were not many people at this point. He got out of the car and bought 2 desserts and some snacks. He packed them back to the car, handed them to her and said, wait a minute, eat later. It didn't look like he was going to take us out to eat. Soo-yoon couldn't help it. Where are we going? You'll find out later. He smiled and focused on driving. It didn't take long, and we stopped in front of a single-family courtyard. The courtyard looked very simple from the outside, just plain and simple. Soo-yoon looked at him doubtfully, and saw him taking out the key and walking forward. Opened the courtyard door. Full of suspicion, Soo-yoon followed him in, only to realize that there was another cave inside. First of all, there are a lot of flowers and plants planted in the courtyard. They have not fully grown yet and the season has not yet arrived, but they are still blooming green. It is very pleasing to see. After walking through the rockery and flowing water, and walking into the house, there is something strange inside. They were 2 very large laboratories, and she could see at a glance that they were filled with experimental equipment. Those things are not only complete, but also professional. The quality is similar to the equipment usually used in the company. This place must have just been built not long ago, and the things inside are still very new. There is still a bit of newly decorated smell in the house that has not been completely dissipated. Go. She had a guess in her mind, but she was not sure. Do you like it? He asked rhetorically without answering. He looked around and was very satisfied with the overall layout. Whatever you like, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. If you like it, does it belong to me? Soo-yoon said half jokingly, glancing at him. Hands lightly touched the test tube, it was so new. That's right, Yao answered her firmly, if you like it, it's yours. Soo-yoon paused with her fingers and looked at him, a little surprised. Did you buy it specifically for me? Even though she probably guessed it, she was still a little surprised to hear him say that. After all, she had just thought of getting her own studio, and he had even chosen the address and even decorated it. This was such a coincidence. Was he the roundworm in her belly? What else? Yao was very satisfied with her reaction. He walked over and stuffed the key into her hand. From today on, this place is yours. I have been looking for it for almost 2 months, and it is still here. It's quite suitable. The location is not out of the way, it's quiet enough, and you can grow the spices you need in the yard. Although the space isn't too big, it should be enough for you to use as a studio for the time being. Enough? Not only is it enough, it is simply too much. Even if she had a preliminary idea, she never thought that there would be such a big and good place. Even if she could rent 2 offices and use one first, this yard was even more perfect than she expected. Many. As long as you're satisfied, seeing her smile, Sci-Yao felt that all the days of searching and trouble were worth it. After all, if I give you such a gift, shouldn't you give me a reward? Su-Yun pursed her lips, stood up on tiptoes and pressed a kiss on the side of his face. Unexpectedly, he suddenly turned his head, pressed his lips against hers accurately, and then deepened the kiss. It was lingering and sentimental, and he let go after a long time. He even said insatiably, "This is not enough." "Not satisfied," she said, tapping his nose. "Of course I'm not satisfied," Sci-Yao let go, "I'm a little hungry. I'll go get some dessert." Yes, Su-Yun nodded, watched him go out, turned around and walked around the house casually. The entire house was built into a specialized laboratory, and the windows were wide and wide, so you can imagine the lighting during the day. It must be very good, but it is also thoughtfully equipped with curtains with good light blocking properties, so that if you need to do experiments in a shaded environment, it will not be affected. There were 2 rows of tables in the middle, with computers, printers, and other equipment on them. Almost everything she could think of, he had already thought of it all for her. Su-Yun is not only satisfied, she is simply too satisfied. Soon, Sci-Yao brought the desserts in, and the 2 of them sat at the table in the middle, opening the lid and smelling the sweet aroma. She and Lisa were already full after finishing the hot pot, but they were still a little hot and thirsty. The dessert Sci-Yao bought was just enough to quench thirst and heat, so he ate more than half of the bowl without realizing it. "How did you come up with the idea of building a studio for me?" she couldn't help but ask. "Frankly speaking, I really thought about building a studio of my own today." "You didn't think about it today? Didn't you have this idea before?" Sci-Yao said, glancing at her with a smile. "Before?" She pondered for a moment and thought seriously. "I think there was, but I don't remember much. Even if there was, it was just a casual thought at that time. It is easy to say that it is easy to set up a studio, but it is much more troublesome to actually put it into practice. Not to mention the location and decoration equipment inside, these were a huge expense. At that time, she did not have much confidence in her own strength, so even if she really spent all her savings to build a studio, there is no market for what you make, and no one recognizes it, so it is unsustainable." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. S.I. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 376. Chapter 376 Gossip about the boss. Because of this, when she wanted to set up a studio in the past, she only considered it as a thinking and took no further action. Until Lisa came to her to take the order today, plus the incident with the Fragrance Industry Association, and all the recent things that happened together, she actually had the idea of implementing the studio for the first time, and she just wanted to. As soon as he thought about it, he had already done it for her. Stopping the spoon in her hand, she raised her head and looked at Sci-Yao, and said very seriously, "Thank you." Perhaps his tone was too serious. Sci-Yao was stunned for a moment. Seeing her eyes filled with gratitude, he couldn't help but raise the corners of his lips and reached out to rub her hair. "You're talking silly again." "It's not stupid, it's the truth," she sighed and said. "You don't know, after I met with Lisa today, when I came back, I was wondering if I could have a studio by myself. If I wanted to, where is the location, what is the approximate budget, and, do you agree, how can I tell you? In the end, I just thought about it, and you have already arranged everything for me." The ups and downs of her mood are indescribable. Sometimes she feels that Sci-Yao is really the noble person in her life, and she can meet him. How lucky I am to be able to hold hands with him for a lifetime. Every time when she feels that he is already good and cannot be better, he can always surprise her again. Fool! You are my wife, if I don't help you make arrangements, who will? He smiled and pinched her cheek. Eat quickly, don't you like his desserts the most? Let's go back after eating. Go back, she blinked and looked at the time. It was already very late. Why don't you stay here if you don't go back? Although I have arranged a rest room for you here, I haven't prepared anything yet. If you stay here today, you will have to make me make a quilt for you first. He opened his arms and went there. Hold her. Soo-yun's cheeks heated up and she stretched out her hand to push him gently. I hate it. Who wants you to make a quilt? It's so hard. Really, he said meaningfully, you think I'm tough now? You can tell me where I'm tough. She felt like she had fallen into his pit. Before Soo-yun could speak, she heard him say, but some people say they think I'm tough, but they hug me very tightly every night. I won't tell you anymore, it's not formal. She stood up and packed up the dessert boxes she had eaten. If his subordinates saw their president like this, they would be shocked. I thought it was quite funny when I remembered that at the press conference that day, his secretary had a look of hatred on her face and looked at her as if she was looking at a temptress who was bringing disaster to the country. Speaking of which, from the company's perspective, I want to resign. Since I have decided to start a studio, I will naturally leave my job at the company. There's no need to resign. The company has decided to create a separate brand for you. It's always easier to do things under the name of Uniaja. He took the garbage from her hand and threw it into the trash can. This way I will arrange for a housekeeper to come and clean it every day. Since I have set up my own studio, I should no longer take up the company's resources. After a pause, Soo-yun turned to look at him, took out a wet tissue from her pocket, and slowly wiped his fingers. What you give is what you give, but the company is a company. It is a public company and a private company. I treat you as a shareholder and I will pay you dividends if I make money in the future. When she raised her eyes to look at him, her eyebrows were creasing with a smile, but her tone was not joking at all. Sci-Yao knew her temper and did not refuse. He just smiled and said, okay, I'll wait for you to give me the dividends. The most important things in the early stage of the studio have been arranged and finalized. The next step is to select personnel, prepare raw materials and other trivial issues. Arian naturally followed her. Zhao Xian originally wanted to come, but she refused. In her words, Zhao Xian is now the supervisor of the freshmen, and the promotion level is very high. There is no doubt that he can have more opportunities in Huanya. Good development, but here she can only help with some simple things. After all, there won't be much business in the early stage, it's just some technical work. In this regard, Zhao Xian can't help much. It's better to let her stay in the company. If the studio develops well in the future, it's not too late to come over and help. Her words were quite convincing, not to mention that Zhao Xian didn't understand the logic behind them, so he nodded and said, if you need help in the future, feel free to ask. The company could have resigned in no hurry, but she still submitted her resignation letter. I was very surprised when I received her resignation letter. It was handed from the freshman to Uniaja, and then from the Human Resources Department of Uniaja directly to the president's office. After all, everyone knows her identity, but no one dares to agree to her resignation easily. Mr. Si knocked on the door and went in. Lin Rui held the letter in her hand and considered the words, Mr. Si, this. Stepped forward and put the resignation letter on his desk, and immediately stood aside, wondering what the boss would think when he saw it. I don't know if Ms. Su has told the CEO about her resignation. She has been staying well at Uniaja. Why did she suddenly want to resign? Or was it after the press conference that all the storms had subsided and she suddenly proposed it at this time? Resigning is really unthinkable. Sci-Yao raised his eyebrows, lightly touched the resignation letter, picked it up with his fingers, and glanced at it. Prying into his face, Lin Rui said carefully, "This is Su-yun's resignation letter. From the Human Resources Department, please give me instructions." He curled his lips and smiled faintly. The Personnel Department did not dare to approve it, so they sent it to him. He had already said that he could just give an order for this matter, but Su-yun insisted that the process should be followed. "Gotta go." Picked up the pen and quickly signed his name on the resignation letter. "Go ahead. I didn't expect things to go so smoothly, and the boss didn't get angry, so it was just solved like this." "What?" Seeing that she was holding her resignation letter but not leaving, Yao asked, "Is there anything else?" "No," shaking her head, Lin Rui bit her lower lip, but still couldn't help asking, "It's just Mr. Secretary, why did Miss Su resign at this time? Hasn't the public opinion crisis been settled? Is it because of the matter with the Fragrance Industry Association? The company will negotiate with it, it's not a big problem. It is just a professional qualification certificate. In fact, there is no hard requirement in the industry to hold this. If you have to file a lawsuit, there are still many loopholes that can be caught. Therefore, compared with the previous poisoning incident, Huanya did not keep this little thing in mind. If you have other plans, if you are curious, just ask her herself," he said ambiguously, smiled meaningfully, and waved his hand. "Go ahead." End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 377. Chapter 377, Are You Pregnant? Lin Rui was stunned. She was surprised that her boss actually smiled, and his smile was so ambiguous. Sweet. And what he said made it really hard not to make people think too much. He had other plans. What plans? Hold the resignation letter and send it to the Human Resources Department, but I still haven't recovered from it. Approved by Mr. Si, the Personnel Department was also surprised. It seems that Mr. Si knows about this matter. The couple has already discussed it. But Su-yun's current development momentum is so good, the company obviously intends to promote her as the chief perfumer. Why should she leave at this time? What do you mean? What does the chief perfumer mean? Don't forget, she is our future boss lady, someone interjected. Ah, yes, then Su-yun resigns, shouldn't she be getting married to Mr. Si? The HR department is not busy at the moment, and since this is explosive gossip about the boss, I couldn't help but start a discussion based on your words and my words. Someone else waved their hands and said, "What? Let me tell you, I heard rumors that Mr. Si and Miss Su had secretly obtained the certificate a long time ago. The wedding is just a formality. Let me tell you, maybe it is the CEO's wife is pregnant, so she can go home and raise the baby in peace." It's true, it's so exciting. For a moment, Lin Rui was dumbfounded and stood there unable to move. In fact, as a qualified secretary, she certainly knew that it was wrong to gossip like this, especially because she was gossiping about her boss. However, her curiosity kept her from moving. She stood there without interrupting or expressing her opinion. She just listened. Following their discussion. Regardless of whether it's true or not, I think it's very possible. Think about how comfortable it is to be the CEO's wife. Why do you have to show yourself like this? Just think about it. Miss Su has been in trouble ever since she entered the freshman class. The news about her is more and more, it's a blast, and now I'm going to be investigated by the Fragrance Industry Association. Why bother working so hard? I might as well just resign and go home. This theory was obviously recognized by most people, and they all nodded and said, "That's right. In fact, if it were me, I would resign." You have a beautiful idea, just think about it, we don't have the life of the CEO's wife. Sister Lin Rui, what's wrong with you? Don't pass our words to Mr. Si, someone saw her in a daze, pushed her, and said nervously. After coming back to his senses, Lin Rui smiled and said, "Okay, if you know you're afraid, just say less. Just do your work. If you don't have the life of the CEO's wife, why not be more diligent?" She turned around and walked out, but she didn't know that office gossip is always the easiest to spread. In less than a day, it had spread all over the place. The CEO's wife is pregnant, so she resigned. Poof. When she heard the news, Soo-yoon was sitting in Zhao Xian's office drinking tea and waiting for the news. Originally, the resignation procedure was very simple. She just had to submit it to her supervisor for approval, and then the new manager Wang would approve it. After all, she was just a new employee. However, due to her special status, she submitted the application at various levels, and she almost sat here most of the day. These are all rumors coming from somewhere. After receiving the news that it had been approved, Soo-yoon stretched out and took a sip of water, but she didn't expect to hear such explosive news. Zhao Xian looked at her belly meaningfully. "Are you really?" "Nonsense," he glared at her and patted his belly with both hands. "Do I look pregnant to you?" "Tisk, tisk, grandma. This place is so easy to photograph." Zhao Xian quickly stepped forward to stop her erratic hand, and touched her lower abdomen. "Hey, it's quite flat. Even if it were there, it shouldn't be more than 3 inches months." Soo-yoon really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She pulled her hand down and said, "Really not. I had my aunt last month, how could it be 3 months? Then there wasn't one last month, what about this month?" Zhao Xian said half-jokingly. "Not even this month." After a pause, she suddenly realized something. She thought carefully about the time last month and this month. She was surprised to find that it seemed that it really exceeded the time. She has been busy recently, with many chores and overwhelming things. She is a relatively careless person in this regard and really didn't pay attention to it. Now that I'm being reminded like this, it makes me think that my period really hasn't come yet this month. Zhao Xian probably guessed that something was wrong with her face when she saw it, and immediately knelt down nervously. "What, you're not really pregnant, are you?" "How is that possible?" She laughed out loud, but her laughter was a little guilty. "I must have been under too much pressure recently and was a little out of balance. Isn't it just a few days late? It can't be the case." "That's not necessarily the case. If you have been accurate in the past but are not accurate this time, you have to be more careful. Sometimes this thing is not accurate, so whatever you say is what you say." "No," shaking her head, Soo-yoon said with certainty, "it really won't happen." "Why not, unless you didn't do it?" Soo-yoon's face turned red at such a private question. "Don't discuss this." "No, I don't want to explore your privacy, but if you really have this possibility, you'd better check it out and make sure. After all, you are exposed to spices and essences. In addition to natural raw materials, there are also things with chemical ingredients. Besides, even the raw materials may not be suitable for pregnant women to smell for a long time." Zhao Xian looked serious. "Although I have never given birth to a child, my sister has, and she also reminded me that after all, we are often exposed to these things, so we should pay extra attention." Soo-yoon stopped talking. She was really a little nervous. She understood that Zhao Xian was right. Some of the things they came into contact with were not suitable for pregnant women to touch, but was she really pregnant? Not sure, inexplicably panicked. But it's also a good thing if you're pregnant. It just so happens that during this period you can just take care of your baby and take a break. Zhao Xian added, "There's no rush at the studio, just settle down slowly." It sounds easier to say, but Soo-yoon doesn't think so. The studio has finally taken shape and cannot stop at this time. She also promised to make a theme series for Lisa. If she gets pregnant at this time, wouldn't she break her promise to her? "Since my resignation has been approved, I'll leave first. Not interested in sitting down to drink tea, Suyun stood up and said, Sister Zhao, I'll leave first. Come to the studio when you have time. I'll get back the address. Hair for you. Okay, do you still have to say these polite words to me? She shook her head and said with concern, if you are really worried, go to the hospital for a checkup. Once you are sure, you will be better prepared. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 378. Chapter 378. You are my savior. Suyun was really worried. It was hard to talk about such private matters, but she knew it in her heart. She and Si Yao did not take any measures twice. At that time, it was considered a safe period. Looking back now, she felt a cold sweat running down her spine. I was driving by myself, and when I looked up and saw the door of the hospital, I realized that I had arrived at the hospital in a trance. However, when I got outside the gate, I started to be confused again. I didn't know whether to go in and check it out. There was hesitation outside the gate, and the car waiting to enter behind her honked its horn to urge her, so she drove in bravely. It's just that I walked around the hospital but couldn't find a parking space, and because I was undecided, I still didn't go in, so I just wandered around and came out again. Finding a nearby drugstore, she didn't dare to ask when she went in. However, the clerk was used to it and asked her if she wanted family planning supplies. Then she hesitantly asked for a pregnancy test stick. When she got home, luckily Si Yao hadn't come back yet. The afternoon sun was just pouring in from the window. She looked at the 2 lines on the pregnancy test stick and felt a chill in her heart. According to what was written in the instructions, this must be pregnancy. I didn't expect that the rumors spread by others would actually come true. I stood there and looked at the 2 lines on the vertical strip. Although there was a faint line, it was still roughly visible. The instructions also said that if there were 2 faint lines, it meant that I was pregnant. So, she really won the bid. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh for a moment. It wasn't that she didn't want this child, but she wasn't mentally prepared for it. It suddenly came like this. If she wanted to keep this child, she would have to give up a lot if she didn't keep it. Gently caressing her lower abdomen, it seemed as if she could already feel a little life leaping there. This was her child, her and Si Yao's child. Did she really want to give it up? Hearing the sound of a car coming from downstairs, she glanced down and saw that Si Yao's car had already entered the door. When she came to her senses, she quickly ran to the bathroom, wrapped the pregnancy test stick in paper and threw it into the trash can. After thinking about it, I felt uneasy, so I threw 2 more pieces of paper into a ball and put them in. By the time she washed her hands, she heard people going upstairs. Am I back early? He walked straight towards her, opened his arms, and hugged her directly. Morning, so early. Suyun felt that her whole body was stiff. She opened her hands and let him hold her. Si Yao held her in his arms, but could clearly feel that her body was stiff and unnatural. He let go and glanced at her. What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? No, she shook her head and lowered her eyes. Maybe I was too busy today, so my bones are rusty. As if to match his words, he moved his arms, shoulders, and neck. Really? Si Yao looked suspicious. He touched her forehead with his hand and felt that the temperature was normal. Looking at her twisting her neck and moving her shoulders, he really thought she was tired. I've already finished my resignation. Let's just take a rest during this period. Don't rush about the studio and take your time. Anyway, the house is bought and not rented. You can't run away if you leave it there. As he said this, he gave her a gentle kiss, rubbing his shoulders. Hearing him say don't rush and take your time, Suyun reflexively said, no. You can't take your time. The extreme reaction made Si Yao suspicious. What's wrong with you? It's okay, she shook her head, but she still didn't dare to tell him about her pregnancy, because she hadn't thought about it yet. Maybe I resigned, and I felt a little sad. Originally, I didn't feel that I was reluctant to let go, but after this period of freshman life is the happiest period since I started working. These words are true. After all, when she was a freshman, her colleagues were very kind to her. Although Zhao Xian made things difficult for her when she first joined the company, she only dealt with the situation. After affirming her ability, everyone became close friends. To be honest, after leaving that scumbag Luo Yuanhang, she realized that the world outside was so vast and she should have gone out for a walk long ago. Really, she said it sincerely, but Si Yao was still a little doubtful. After all, her reaction was a bit strange. Really, she opened her arms around his neck and said word by word, and all of this is because of you. Sometimes I look back and think about it, Si Yao, I am really grateful to you in my last days. In difficult times, when I want to seek help the most, I think of you and look for you. I also thank you for your willingness to help me. Although I don't know why you were willing to help me at that time, but, you are my savior. Her eyes were extremely sincere, and the words she spoke were all true. These words had been hidden in her heart for a long time, but she never expected to say them out at this time and in such an environment. Don't you know why I help you? He gently held her head with one hand and rubbed her soft hair from the back of her head, because I have liked you a long time ago. Nonsense, she scoffed, but she didn't believe it. Long time ago? None of them knew each other, and at most they had met once during the rookie competition. They would never tell her that they fell in love with her at first sight, right? It's true, don't you believe it? He pressed his finger a little harder to emphasize that he was not joking. Blinking and looking at him, Su-Yun said, when was that? Don't tell me, it was when I participated in the rookie competition for the first time that you fell in love with me at first sight. Then I would laugh at you. At that time, she didn't understand anything, and it was her first time participating in a competition. Even if she won the prize at the time, there was such a huge embarrassment in the subsequent competition. As the president of Uniasia, how could he excel? People who have never seen this before, how could they pay special attention to themselves? It wasn't that time. Si Yao shook his head and said, it was earlier than that. It's still early. Su-Yun was surprised and had no impression at all. When was that? I don't remember. I clearly remember the first time I saw you. At the Si family. After a pause, he said, to be precise, at the Si family's old residence. The Si family's old house? Have I been there? She was even more surprised. She felt as if her memory had been taken away by someone and she couldn't remember it at all. You were still young at that time, maybe because you were too young, so you don't remember. But I remember you, that's all. Pressing his forehead against hers, Si Yao didn't care that she didn't remember. In short, he didn't. After losing her, he was still with her, and that was enough. No, I was already 9 years old when I was in the Chu family, so it's impossible for me not to remember things. Is it earlier than 9 years old? This incident was too surprising for her to just let it go. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 379. Chapter 379. Even you don't want me anymore. About 7 years old. Si Yao pondered for a moment and said, at that time, you were probably 7 years old. He only inferred based on his age, and was not very sure, but he was certain of one thing, you came with your parents that time. The title Mom, Dad is so far away to her. Even the memory of my parents is already so blurry that I can barely remember their faces. I have no impression. He shook his head, a little frustrated. Because she couldn't remember the appearance of her parents, and because her memory was so vague that it seemed to have disappeared. In fact, to be precise, she was greatly stimulated after her parents passed away, and she couldn't remember much of what happened before. At that time, Grandpa said, "It's better if you don't remember. If you don't remember, just forget about the past and live happily in the future." But for a person, knowing that he has lost a memory, but he can't remember it, that is a very special thing. Sad thing. If I was only 7 years old, how old were you then? Did you fall in love so early? No, secret love, she thought for a while and said, "No, I was only 7 years old at that time." You would never fall in love with someone is a 7-year-old kid tempted. What are you thinking about? He flicked her forehead and said with a smile, "You were a cute little girl at that time, with a bright smile on your face, like a ray of sunshine, and..." Looking at her face, he suddenly reached out and pinched her soft cheeks. "She still has a little baby fat on her face." "Ah," she exclaimed when he was suddenly pinched, and patted his hand, but she couldn't help but be curious. "What then? What then? Do you remember my parents? What did our family do when we went to your old house? My grandma celebrated her birthday that year, so you must have come to celebrate her birthday." Compared with her interest, he seemed reluctant to recall. "It's been so long, I don't even remember it." Soo-yoon could vaguely feel that it wasn't that he didn't remember much, but that he didn't want to recall it. As for why, he didn't say. But there must be a past in everyone's heart that they don't want to be mentioned, so she didn't ask any more questions. "A new batch of equipment will be delivered to the studio tomorrow. Are you busy?" Yao asked with concern. "Come here if you're busy," she nodded quickly. As soon as she said the words, she thought of the two sharp lines again, and couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. Not wanting him to notice her strangeness again, Soo-yoon yawned and said, "I don't know if I'm too tired recently. I'm a little sleepy and want to take a nap." "Then go to bed." Yao nodded, no doubting that he was there. "I still have some things to deal with." "You can sleep by yourself, okay? What's wrong? You still think I'm a child?" She pushed his shoulders with both hands. "Go and do your work, I'm going to sleep." After being pushed by her for a few steps, Yao turned around when he was at the door, lowered his head and kissed her forehead. "Be good." With warmth in her heart, she said like a kitten, "Yeah." Watching him go downstairs, Soo-yoon breathed a sigh of relief, but her heart was in a state of confusion. A hand involuntarily touched his lower abdomen. "What should I do with this child?" Yoon Chuk-yeon was in the factory, watching bottles of beautifully packaged perfume being packed out on the assembly line, with a proud smile on his face. Seeing that these will go to the market and then turn into a lot of money, he will gain more than these, so making money is not that difficult. At the beginning, his father told him that doing business was not easy, and told him to be cautious and learn more. Now it seems that the old man has not kept up with the times and his thinking is relatively conservative. As long as he dares to do it, these things are not its hard. "Manager Yoon, this batch of perfume will be completed in another week and will be ready for the market," the person in charge of the factory reported to him. He nodded and said, "Yes, well done. You will all be heroes when the time comes." "Thank you, Manager Yoon." "Well, by the way, has Deputy Manager Luo been here recently?" He thought for a while and asked. "No," the person in charge sighed and said, "Since the official start of the assembly line, Deputy Manager Luo has not come once, but he has made 2 phone calls. He just gave a few words of advice, asked about the construction period, and other things. Nothing more to say." "Never been here." He raised his voice. Yoon Chuk-yeon's face became unhappy, and snorted coldly, "He is quite leisurely. Luo Yuan Hang, Luo Yuan Hang, he talks about all the hype, but in the end he is hiding and lazing around. He also boasts about the experience that the elites in the industry have. It seems to be the experience of laziness. But this is fine. When the time comes, he will be rewarded based on his merits, and he will have nothing to do. He can even take the opportunity to kick him out. Who knows whether he is really obeying her, or whether he is a spy sent by Yoon Chug-seo. Anyway, he belongs to that woman. He is not worried. When he takes control of the company, he must change a group of his confidants. Maybe I'm too busy after all. The people below didn't want to offend anyone, so they laughed and said, "But Manager Yoon, you are really hardworking and you come here often to keep an eye on me. This project is very important and cannot go wrong, of course I have to keep an eye on it." After a pause, he walked to the door and turned back. "By the way, give me a bottle to take away first." Yes, he immediately ordered someone to pack a bottle and send it over. After taking the bottle of perfume, Yoon Chuk-yeon held it in his hand and looked at it. "Okay, I'll leave first." "Take the perfume and leave, going straight to where your mother lives?" In fact, that is where he has lived for more than 20 years. He only recently moved to the Yoon family's house. He had been living there with his mother for the past many years. Although the environmental conditions of the house are not bad, and it is still in a villa area after all, how can it be compared with a house like the Yoon family? After all, the main house is the main house, and living outside will always feel like it is shady. The atmosphere at home was not good, and he had already guessed it before he came back. However, he still raised a smile and walked in quickly. "Mom." There was no one in the living room. She was finally found in the bedroom. Chen-guo was lounging on the bed, looking lazy. She was not very happy when she saw him. She hummed, "You're back. Mom, are you feeling unwell? Are you sick?" He sat down next to the bed and reached out to touch her forehead. It was at a normal temperature, not hot. But Chen-guo softened in response to his hand, and tears quickly filled her eyes. She looked like she had been wronged a lot. "Xiaoqian, Xiaoqian, are the only one who still cares about my mother. My mother thought, you don't even want me anymore." Yoon Chuk-yeon. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 380. Chapter 380. The Taste of Success. How could that be? "Mom, I'm not here to see you." She let go of her hand and tried to stand up, but Chen-guo held her wrist firmly. "Don't leave. If you leave, Mom will have nothing." Yoon Chuk-yeon frowned and said, "Mom, I'm not leaving. I'm going to get you a glass of water. Look, your mouth is so dry." When he said this, Chen-guo raised her hand to touch her lips. They were indeed quite dry. Then she sighed and said, "Don't say it makes your skin dry. Even if it makes you bleed, who cares, woolen cloth." "Mom, don't say that. Don't I care about you? Dad cares about you too." "Your dad? Forget it," she sneered coldly, but she still looked very unhappy. "For so many years, he has always been nice to us and coaxing us, mother and son, but in his heart, he still wants to be the one at home. Women's." "You are talking angrily." He poured a glass of water and handed it to her, helped her sit up, and watched her drink water in small sips. Yoon Chuk-yeon said, "You and Dad have been together for so many years, and you still don't understand his feelings for you. Besides, I can see it, Dad still loves you very much. It hurts me that I can't bear to part with the 50 million, but it hurts me that I gave the necklace to someone else." Thinking about it, I felt aggrieved. I didn't even want to drink the water, so I put the cup aside. Looking at her actions, Yoon Chuk-yeon knew of course that she was still angry, so he followed her thoughts and coaxed, "It turns out it's about the necklace. Look, you already know it. What people are saying outside, I've never been so embarrassed in my life." She covered her face with her hands. She didn't dare to read the news or check Weibo for the past 2 days. She scanned the hot spots, fearing that all she saw would be those who laughed at her. Even the phone does not dare to answer the phone, and the mahjong who is usually appointment will not go, so I am afraid to see the eyes of others mocking. Then you really think too much, Yoon Chukian took her hand and said with a smile, I didn't hear any ridicule or rumors. It's just a necklace. Mom, do you really care about that necklace? You know what, I've been eyeing that necklace for a long time. I've been eyeing it since the auction. Then you don't like other jewelry and you must have it, do you want that necklace and nothing else in this life? After being stunned for a moment, Chen Guo immediately retorted, that's not possible. One necklace is not enough. That's it, Yoon Chukian laughed. Look, how can a necklace do it? It's not that you don't understand this truth, you're just betting on your anger. Mom, soon the entire Yoon family will be ours. At that time, how many necklaces do you want? How many necklaces do you want? Tao Shao, how many people do you want to envy? Why bother at this moment? Hearing what his son said, Chen Guo gradually became less angry. Are you really okay? Look. Why don't you believe me? I'm your son, Yoon Chukian said seriously, pretending to be angry. Seeing that he was angry, Chen Guo immediately relented. Xiaoqian, it's not that mom doesn't believe in you, it's just, you just have to have confidence. Mom has been counting on you to get ahead all her life. The Yoon family will be yours in the future. It will make my mother feel at ease. Mom, don't worry, the day is coming soon. When the Yoon family becomes mine, I will take you back to the Yoon family. At that time, you will be the mistress of the Yoon family. If that woman is in a good mood, she will stay and be your wife. I'm in charge of you, if you're in a bad mood, just tell her to get out. These words obviously touched Chen Guo's heart. She nodded, that's right. When the time comes, she will be the one to look at our faces. By the way, Mom, I have a gift for you. Patting her hand, Yoon Chukian turned around and took out the bottle of perfume from his bag. This is my son's first work. This perfume is very special. It will be released soon and enter the international market. It will become popular all over the world and become a bestseller. Now, I will take a bottle to honor you. Really, hearing what he said, Chen Guo was very happy and immediately became energetic. He took the perfume and took a look at it. Oh, it's so beautiful. Looking around, he opened the package, took out the bottle, and couldn't wait to spray it on his wrist. How was it? Yoon Chukian asked with a smile, waiting to receive the compliment. Chen Guo took a deep breath and nodded repeatedly, smells. It smells so good. This is the most fragrant and best perfume I have ever used. My son is awesome. With his mother's approval, Yoon Chukian became even more confident, so I say, just wait for the good news about your son. Chen Guo was also very happy. She sprayed it twice more with a smile. The air was filled with fragrance. She closed her eyes and raised her face, enjoying the smell of the perfume. Yoon Chukian watched quietly from the side. In his eyes, it seems that a bright future has been seen. Sniffing, Chen Guo frowned, and then sniffed again. What's wrong? Seeing his mother's abnormal reaction, Yoon Chukian asked quickly. It's nothing, I just feel a little weird. He sniffed again, as if to make sure. What's weird? He imitated her curiously, twitching his nose and taking a deep breath. Perhaps he was using too much force, and the scent rushed directly into his nose, choking him and making him sneeze several times. Hey Xiaoqian, please slow down a little, Chen Guo said, waving his hand. Mom, what's so strange about it? He asked, rubbing his nose. Shaking her head, Chen Guo said, I don't know either, it's just a feeling, I can't explain it. Picked up the perfume bottle and looked at it. It was a very beautiful light blue liquid, and the bottle was also beautifully designed. There was nothing wrong with it. She also uses perfume, but she is not very proficient in it, but after all, it was a gift from her son, so she is still very happy. Never mind, maybe this is the smell of success. The taste of success. That's right. You are about to succeed. We, mother and son, have struggled for so many years and are finally getting ahead. Isn't this the smell of success? By the way, son, what is the name of this perfume? Yoon Chukian stared at the perfume in her hand and laughed. This perfume is called Victory. Victory. Yes. It means victory. This bottle of perfume represents my victory and success, as well as the victory and success of our mother and son. This name is the most suitable for it. Slowly repeated twice, Chen Guo nodded and looked at the bottle of perfume over and over again. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. I like this name. I like it too. Mom, you are right, this is the smell of success. She raised her head and took a deep sniff. The smell was really addictive, and victory was right in front of her. End of this chapter.